can give us a little progression on Porsche lineage and the marks and the evolution of the different models, most of which we're seeing out here on the track now.
Thank you, Dick. You're absolutely correct that we are seeing pretty much the complete lineage of Porsche on the track now from a street car point of view. Of course, Porsche's first product was introduced in 1948 when they built a mid-engine roadster. It was the very first Porsche number 1, and that was followed by approximately 50 cars that were built in a sawmill, literally a sawmill in Gmünd, Austria, where Porsche had been relocated to during the war. And after the war, they stayed in that location until 1950, when they moved back to their headquarters in Stuttgart. The Gmünd Coupes raced at Le Mans in 1951 and actually won their class at Le Mans as well. So Porsche's racing heritage started by a class win at Le Mans. And the 356 series that we see a number of variants out there now were produced starting in 1950 as a steel body car. All the way through 1965, there were 4 different series of cars, pre-A, as they are commonly referred to, or basically just 356s, were produced from 1950 to 1954, and then in, 55, and then in 1956, Porsche produced the 356A series, as they called it. Then in 1960, they produced the B series car, and then the last 2 years of production, 64 and 65, were referred to as the C series, and those cars were the first Porsche street cars with disc brakes. The previous cars all had drum brakes, and the C series was the first series that Porsche produced with disc brakes. The engine sizes were anything from starting at 1100 cc, and the final variant of the 356s was a 2-liter version in 4-cam form. Some of the 4-cam racing engines were actually produced for the street cars. So the Carrera engine, as it was called, was produced for use in the street cars, and some of these cars actually became racing cars. Porsche, the company, raced some of the coupes of that era in a number of different venues as well. So certainly the 356 series got Porsche on the map from a racing point of view, and then Porsche introduced the 911, which we could chat about as well.
Of the 356s, the A, the B, and the C, which one had the greatest production run, volume, number of cars?
Well, the Porsche total for all 3 of those series, including the pre-A, was approximately, I believe, 75 to 76,000. I can't remember the exact number, but the A series produced a number of cars, and the C series, the final 2 years, from a car per year point of view, produced more cars, but the A series, because it ran longer, produced more cars.
I thought that was true, but I wasn't sure, because I remember all 3 series, and thank you for explaining the differences between them, and the C being the first with disc brakes. Then I went to the 911.
That's correct. At the Frankfurt Auto Show in 1963, they actually introduced the 911, which was designed by Ferdinand Alexander Porsche III, who is the grandson of the professor who passed in 51, and is the son of Ferry Porsche, who basically ran the company until his passing in the 90s. Ferdinand Alexander, or Butzi as he was referred to, also designed a couple of the Formula One cars, Formula One 4-cylinder cars from the early 1960s. But the 911 was introduced at the Frankfurt show as the 901. And Peugeot had a patent on any 900 series cars that the second digit would be a 0, so Porsche had to change the nomenclature of the 901 and reintroduce it as the 911. It was first introduced in 2-liter form and was produced from 1965 to 1969 in 2-liter form. Then the displacement was increased to 2.2 liter in 1970 and 2.4 liter in 1972, then to 2.7 liter, then to 3 liter, then to 3.2, 3.4, 3.6, and 3.8. So that engine's seen a tremendous life, and it continues to be one of Porsche's strongest engines. Of course, all their racing variants are built on that engine and have been in all the 911s that they've raced, as well as the 935s, the 934s before them, the RSRs that raced, and the 936s, and then the 956s, 962s that we saw yesterday running so well, all have six-cylinder engines, of course turbocharged and 750 horsepower, but they're all a variant of that original 2-liter engine.
Porsche was able to have some models with the 0 in the middle of the number designation, but those were race cars and not production cars. Is this why they did not conflict with Peugeot?
That is correct. You are correct. Of course, you're referring to specifically the 904, which was mid-60s car that we've seen raced here this weekend. And yes, Peugeot had a lock on all production cars with beginning number 9 and the second digit being a 0. The 911, of course, has been Porsche's great success, and there have been a number of times during the period that it is being produced, starting in 1963, that Porsche actually considered discontinuing the 911, but the response from the public when that was a rumor, why Porsche has continued again to produce that silhouette to this day, and I think it's a testament to the timeless design of that car and the fact that people today worldwide recognize that design as the Porsche design. Of course, the 911s were and still are very, very popular, and Porsche, as David Fryer alluded to yesterday, has gone into many different arenas with their cars. They now have a 2-seater open car, the Boxster, that's been available now for 12 or 13 years, and they did the coupe version of that, the Cayman, which has been a very, very good car for them. And as well, they went into the SUV market with the Cayenne, which just did extremely well for them, both in a turbo form and in the normally aspirated form.
I think that's become their best-selling vehicle, hasn't it?
It actually has. They sold, I believe, it's close to 500,000 units since that car has been produced, so it's been a great car for them. And of course, it shares the platform with the VW Touareg, so it's a win-win situation that both companies can use basically the same platform for that car.
And now the latest Porsche is the Panamera that is making its North American debut here this weekend at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca as part of the 36 Rolex Monterey Historic Automobile Races.
Well, the Panamera certainly adds a lot to Porsche's line, and I've had the privilege, I guess I should say, of being in one in Germany, which allows you to stretch your legs a little bit. And I've talked with a couple of the technicians who have spent time developing the